Hello, everybody in 10.3. Hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy out there and you're not too bored in your self-isolation. Just walking around this empty classroom right now kind of feels more surreal as every day passes, but we'll just continue on our way here. So hopefully you finished up everything in the last unit on earning an income, and we are now moving on into a new unit that is on length, area, and volume. So actually a pretty hefty unit here. I would suggest that you just print out maybe the pages for homework practice rather than printing out the whole note package, because you can just kind of go online and use it as a reference for yourself. At the beginning of this note package, I also added the formula sheet, and I also have that as another file on the Google Classroom. And I would suggest that you print that formula sheet out for yourself, because you can use it for a reference as you go through practice problems or test questions or whatever it may be. Okay, so we are looking at, for the first lesson here, we are looking at units of length. And really, first of all, we're just going to take a quick look at different types of measurement systems. So we're in Canada, and we use two types of measurement systems here. We use the SI measurement system, which is called the System International. I'm not going to try and flex my French right now. International, whatever, I can't spell. And so the SI system is also called the metric system. That is the measurement system that's used in like Canada and the UK. And so the units that are in the metric or the SI system would obviously then be meters. It's also looking at grams and liters. And those are the common base units for the SI system. The other type of measurement system that we use in Canada is the one that's more commonly used in the United States, which is called the Imperial System. Okay. And we use Imperial System mostly because we're really close to the US, and that is who we do trade with. And so we have to also know those numbers. Also, a lot of tradespersons deal with imperial units. So in school, we have to use both of them because they are used in our daily lives outside of school quite a bit. The imperial system would include units like miles, yards, and inches. And so let's just go kind of take a quick look. So where in the world do people use the metric and imperial system? So you can see here, the red is the imperial. And so that's used mostly in the United States. And then they give you two others, Libya and Myanmar. But there's a little thing here. I don't know how well you can see this. Canada, Australia, and India, and some other countries in the Commonwealth also use imperial units. So really, we kind of use a mixture of both of them. Almost every other country in the world, so everything here, all over the place in blue, uses the metric system or the SI system. And so, what's the importance? Well, obviously, we need to be able to measure things, to build things, and to convert them. But it's also really important to recognize what measurement system you are using, in a given problem. And a really common example of this is NASA in 1998. They lost $125 million Mars orbiter because half of their staff was using the imperial system and the other half was using the metric system. So, they go through, they do everything, they build this, they launch it, and when it goes to orbit Mars, rather than orbiting around Mars, it actually gets sucked into Mars's atmosphere and crashes. So they lose everything from that, $125 million project. So that's just kind of one of the many examples why we have to make sure we know what unit system we are dealing with. So today, I'm going to take a look mostly at the imperial system. And the imperial system, I'm not going to fill in that blank here. The imperial system was originally developed by Britain, and it's later adopted by the United States. And really, the imperial system was a reference for commonly used relationships that they would have used kind of prior to, a lot of common length development tools. So here's the main units in the imperial system. So we have an inch, and we abbreviate inches as IN, or we also use those two little tick marks to the next to a number. Foot would just be FT, or we have like the one little tick mark next to a number. So just for example, I could say I'm 5 feet 2 inches, but that's not usually how we do it. I would say I'm 5 feet 2 inches. So that's just how those little tick marks work to give you the abbreviation for the units. Yards would just be represented as YD, and mile is MI. Okay. And so just for an example of how, basically how we use a ruler, if we're not already familiar with that, most of the rulers that we use, at least in school, also, measuring tapes have both measurement systems on them, because we use both of them, right? So if I'm, for example, measuring something in inches, and I say, something measures from here to here, I always start at 0, right? I'm not going to start at the edge of the ruler. I start at 0. So if I have whatever this is and it's in between this area, well, that's just going to measure at 2 inches. But what if something doesn't have a really nice measurement? What if it is, let's say right around, where do I want to go? Let's say right, here's my example. I had a particular one I wanted to look at. Right here. Okay, let's say I have this shape and it measures this much. Well, how do I measure that, right? It tells me this is a quarter, this is a half, this is 3/4. But what are each of these little tick marks worth? And if I count them, each tick mark is actually worth 1/16. So there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 16ths of an inch is what that would measure. Now, usually I wouldn't say 6/16ths of an inch, because I can put that as a fraction in lowest form, which is 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so every tick mark on here is worth 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so first of all, we're looking at here is solving imperial measurement problems. And so if we are just looking at measurement conversion problems, we first of all have to know how to convert between one unit and another. And some people know these conversions off the top of your head. That's great. If you don't know them, again, you have them on your formula sheet, so make sure you print one of those out for yourself. So some common measurement conversions here. In 1 foot, there are 12 inches. In 1 yard, there are 3 feet, which is equivalent to 36 inches. So 1 yard is equal to 36 feet, or 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. We also have 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards, or 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. And again, all of those measurement conversions for you are on your formula sheet. So given these measurement conversions, we then have to know how to convert back and forth given different types of units. And looking at the imperial system here, there's really kind of 2 different ways I can do this. I could use a conversion factor, or I could use a proportional relationship. If you remember towards the beginning of the year, I had said, if you can solve with proportional relationships, you'll for sure pass this course. And this is, again, another way that we're solving using proportional relationships. So this question is asking me to convert 3,529 yards to miles. So how many miles is that? Well, let's start off by using a proportion, because it's something we should be fairly familiar with. Well, what I'm trying to do is convert from yards to miles. So I need to find a conversion factor that has both of those units in it. Well, here's miles and here's yards. So I will literally just write that down. So 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards. And so I'm going to set up a proportion. So we're setting up 2 fractions. So I have 3,529 yards. So I'm going to put that underneath the same unit. So 3,529 yards over X miles. So I'm trying to figure out how many miles are in that amount. Once you have your proportional relationship set up, hopefully you remember what to do. We're going to cross multiply and divide. So to figure out how many miles is in there, we would go 1 times 3,529, which is just 3,529. And then I would divide that by 1,760. And so my final answer here, when I divide those, it comes out to be about 2.005, and this number keeps going. So I will just say X is approximately 2.0 miles. Now, in this unit, it's especially important you're going to include in your answer what unit you are talking about, okay? So that's the first way I could solve this problem, is using a proportional relationship. And if that's how you want to solve all of the questions, you can go ahead and do that. The other one is actually using a conversion factor. So looking at all of these conversion factors, what we want to say is, like, how can I go from one unit to the other? Well, how do I go from 1 to 12? To go from 1 to 12, I mean, I could add, but because these are proportional, I'm multiplying. So to go from 1 to 12, I multiply by 12. Well, then how would I reverse that process? To reverse that process, I would just divide by 12. So anytime I'm going from 1 to a number, I'm going to multiply. So to go from 1 yard to 3 feet, I would multiply by 3. To go from 1 yard to inches, I multiply by 36, whatever the given number is in that conversion factor. To go backwards then, from inches to yards, I need to undo that process. So I would divide by 36. To go backwards from feet to yards, I would divide by 3. And the same thing is going to work down here. To go from miles to yards, I'd have to times by 1,760. And to go backwards, I would divide by 1,760. And the same thing works here. Times by 5,280. And to go backwards, divide by 5,280. So to go from 1 to some number, I multiply. And to go backwards, I would divide, depending on what that conversion factor is, what number I'm going to use. So here, let's take a look at what conversion factor I'm going to use here. So in this question, I'm going from yards to miles. So I usually write this down for myself. Okay, I'm going to go from yards to miles. So I'm going to start at yards, and I got to go backwards to miles. So if I'm going backwards here, I need to divide by 1,760. So I would take the number in the question, 3,529, and divide it by the number that I'm given. So 1,700 divide by my conversion factor, which is 1,760. And when I put that on my calculator, I get the exact same answer as if I did it over here, right? I should get the same answer because I used just a different strategy to get there. So it's about or approximately 2 miles. That's what this equal sign with a dot above it means, is that means approximately. All right, let's go look at a few more and then be done looking at imperial measuring conversions. I'm going to come back to B just because it's kind of different than the other ones here. So let's take a look at D. So this says convert 8 3/4 yards to feet. Well, like 3/4 yards is the same as saying like 0.75. So this is really saying change 8.75 yards to feet. And when I look at it like that, it makes my life a little bit easier to comprehend. So let's solve this with a proportion. So I'm going to go back and look at my conversion factor. And for my conversion factors, here I'm dealing with, yards and feet. So in 1 yard, there are 3 feet. So I will write that conversion factor down. In 1 yard, there are 3 feet. So that's for my conversion factor on the page before. And now I'm going to substitute the numbers here into what I'm looking for. So I know that I'm looking for 8.75 yards, and I want to know how many feet that is. So once I've set up my proportion, we would just cross multiply and divide. So 3 times 8.75 divided by 1. So X is equal to 26.25. And I'm looking for X, so that's my final answer, would be in feet. All right, I'm going to do E using conversion factor, and then I'll switch and using proportions, and I'll do conversion factor for the next one. So 1,700 and 17,850 feet, and I need to convert that to miles. So I'm looking for this conversion factor of feet and miles. So when I go here, I have 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. I don't need to include that middle part because it's not adding anything, right? This isn't adding anything for me right now, so I'm just looking at this part of my conversion factor. So from that, I know that 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. And I want to know how many miles are in this 1,700 or 17,850 feet. And once I've set that up, I'm doing the same thing, cross multiply and divide. So x is equal to approximately 3.38 miles. And I could always convert it in another way to know that I'm right, but I should be able to look at this and say, well, I should be approximately right because there's about 5,000 feet in 1 mile. Well, I could go, 15,000 feet approximately would give me 3 miles, so I should be kind of close or over 3 miles at least. I kind of deduce it out that way. Okay, I'm going to take a look at C, and then I'll come back up to B. So C says 17,850 feet, and I want to go to yards, so I'm going to use a proportion. So I'm trying to find the conversion factor that converts from feet to yards. So when I go here to go from feet to yards, so feet to yards is right here. And I'm going backwards, so I would divide that by 3. So to go from feet to yards, I just divide by 3. So I'm going to take 17,850 and divide that by 3. And so when I divide that by 3, the yards is going to equal to 5,950 yards. Again, your final answer should always include your units on it. Next 2 questions are kind of different than these other ones, so I want to save them for last. Oops. Caught it in case you're wondering. Convert 10 feet and 3/16 inches to inches. Well, it's kind of weird, right? Because I have 10 feet and I have 3/16 inches. And 3/16 inches is just a really ugly fraction, but whatever, we'll leave it as it is. But they want this all to inches. So I don't need to convert this. What I need to do is change the feet to inches. And if we remember, there are 12, to go from feet to inches, I just times by 12, because there are 12 inches in a foot. So I would take this and times it by 12. So I get 120 inches, and I'd have 3/16 of an inch. So really all I need to do, now that those are in inches, is just add both of them together. So I would get 120.1875 inches. So that's if I change this to a fraction. All right. Last one here. It says Ryanair will accept carry-on luggage if its length, width, and height add up to no more than 46 inches. Beverly's suitcase is 2 feet in length, 1 foot 4 inches in width, and 9 inches in height. Will Ryanair allow her to carry her suitcase on board? Now, kind of a weird question because usually it's like based off of volume, but I guess it's kind of the same here. So they have to add up to no more than 49 inches, the length, width, and height. So we have to go make sure all of those don't add up to 46. Now, I can't add them all up right now because some of these are in feet and some of them are in inches. So what I would do is I would just convert them all to inches and then add them up. So we said to go from feet to inches, I times by 12. So this would be 24 inches. This feet needs to be changed to inches, so there's 12 inches in a foot, so I just add 12 inches. And this would just stay as 4 inches, and the height would just stay as the 9 inches. And I need to add all of that up. So 24 plus 12 plus 4 plus 9 gives me the total of the length, width, and height is equal to 49 inches. So is this airline company going to allow her to take that suitcase on board? No, because they can't add up to more than 46 inches. So no, she could not take that suitcase on board. Okay, so that is it for imperial measurements. There are about, 5 questions attached in this homework section. I would suggest you go through, at least half, maybe 3/4 of them. And if you're getting them all right, that's great. Make sure you're checking your answers with the scanned copy that's posted online for you guys. And that is it. I'll probably put another or check out the video on the metric system, and then there will be a quiz that combines both of those 2 lessons. All right, guys, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section or fire me an email. Thank you.